What if the Bible you've read your entire life is missing entire chapters? What if 2,000 years ago, a group of terrified monks hid the original, unedited versions of these sacred texts in desert caves? And they were just found by accident? This isn't fiction. This is the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century. Thousands of fragile parchment fragments hidden away for millennia, containing secrets that rewrote everything we thought we knew about the Bible, ancient Judaism, and the origins of Christianity, from a stray goat and a shepherd boy throwing rocks to a black market underworld, to a treasure map etched into solid copper that no one has ever decoded. Today we are unlocking all 5 layers of their secrets. Our story begins in 1947 on the barren cliffs above the Dead Sea. A young Bedouin shepherd named Mohammed Adib was tending his flock near the ruins of Qumran, where one of his goats wandered off and disappeared into a narrow cave. Frustrated, he picked up a rock and hurled it into the darkness. Instead of the clatter of stone on stone, he heard the sharp crack of breaking pottery. Curious, he climbed down into the cave. Lining the back wall were 10 tall clay jars sealed with wax untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Inside, wrapped in linen, were scrolls of parchment and papyrus covered in ancient Hebrew writing. Muhammad had no idea what he'd found. He thought they might be old, worthless junk. He hauled the scrolls back to his village and eventually sold them to a local antiquities dealer for 7 Jordanian pounds, roughly $300 today. From there, the scrolls vanished into the Middle Eastern black market. They traded hands between smugglers and dealers for months, until a scholar at the American School of Oriental Research in Jerusalem got his hands on a few fragments. He realized instantly what they were: the oldest biblical manuscripts ever discovered by 1,000 years. By 1954, the original scrolls were advertised for sale in the Wall Street Journal. They were eventually purchased for $250K by Hebrew University, a collection worth hundreds of millions today. And that was just the first cave. Over the next decade, archaeologists and Bedouin shepherds found 10 more caves scattered across the Qumran cliffs, holding nearly 900 separate manuscripts, most shattered into tens of thousands of tiny fragments. For the next 70 years, scholars would painstakingly piece them together like a 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and what they found shocked the world. Small grammatical tweaks, no major plot changes, no deleted verses. For anyone who'd wondered if the Bible had been drastically altered over time, this was bombshell proof. The core text had survived almost perfectly intact for 2 millennia. But not every book was so unchanged. Take the Book of Samuel. For centuries, readers had been confused by one story. the sudden unintroduced appearance of Nahash, king of the Ammonites, who attacks Israel out of nowhere. It felt like a chapter was missing. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that missing chapter was there. An entire paragraph explaining Nahash's rise to power and his brutal campaign of terror, cut out of the text by a careless scribe hundreds of years ago. It was a copy-paste error that made it into every Bible for 1,000 years. This raises a question we still debate today. Should modern Bibles be updated to match the oldest original texts? Drop a comment, yes or no. About 30% of the scrolls are books that never made it into the official Bible, banned, forgotten, and erased from the official canon. The most famous is the Book of Enoch. Tells a wild, almost a sci-fi story of fallen angels called the Watchers, who descended to earth, married a human woman, and fathered a race of giant warriors known as the Nephilim. It was one of the most popular religious texts of the ancient world. But by the 4th century, religious leaders cut it from the official Bible, branding it heretical. Before the Dead Sea Scrolls, we only knew it from later translations and passing references. Now we have the original Hebrew version, proving it was a core part of Jewish religious life at the time of Jesus. There's also the Genesis Apocrypha, an expanded version of the Book of Genesis, with extra scenes, detailed descriptions of the Great Flood, and even long passages praising the beauty of Sarah, Abraham's wife. They aren't fake books, they were just the ones that lost the political battle for a spot in the official Bible. 2,000 years ago, there was no single correct Bible. There were hundreds of different texts believed by different groups, all circulating around the ancient world. The scrolls proved that the Bible we have today wasn't handed down from heaven fully formed. It was curated, edited, and voted on by human beings, centuries after the original stories were written. Of all 900 scrolls, one is completely unlike the others. It's not written on parchment or papyrus. It's etched into a thin sheet of solid copper. It is the copper scroll. And it's not a religious text at all. It's a treasure map. When scholars first found it, the copper was so corroded and brittle they couldn't unroll it without shattering it. They had to cut it open with a special high-speed saw, piece by piece. And when they translated the Hebrew writing inside, it listed 64 separate locations across the Judean wilderness, each hiding vast quantities of gold, silver, and sacred temple artifacts. One entry reads, "In the fortress in the valley of Acre, beneath the steps facing east, a chest of silver weighing 17 talents. 17 talents of silver is roughly half a ton. Altogether, the scroll describes a hoard worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. Most of it supposedly treasure looted from the temple in Jerusalem." And here's the kicker. No one has ever found any of it. Archaeologists and treasure hunters have searched every site listed on the scroll for 70 years. They've dug holes, scanned the ground with radar, explored every cave and room. Nothing. Some say it's all a myth, a work of fiction. Others say the treasure was looted long ago by Roman soldiers. And some believe it's still out there, buried in the desert sand, waiting for someone to find it. So who wrote all these scrolls, and why did they hide them in caves? The short answer, we're not 100% sure. But the leading theory points to a reclusive religious sect called the Essenes. The Essenes were a strict monastic Jewish group who rejected the corruption of the temple in Jerusalem. They retreated to the desert, built a small community at Qumran, and lived by an extremely harsh set of rules. We know about them from ancient writers like Pliny the Elder and the historian Josephus, who described them as a community of shared property, strict prayer schedules, and extreme piety. And the scrolls matched that description perfectly. One text, called the Rule of the Community, lays out the laws of the group. New members had to give up all their possessions and go through a 2-year trial period before joining. Speaking foolishly got you 6 months of punishment. Gesturing with your left hand during prayer got you 10 days of penance. Every member studied the scripture day and night, preparing themselves for the end of days. It's not a perfect match. The scrolls never actually say the world as seems. Some scholars think the scrolls belonged to a group of exiled priests from Jerusalem, not a monastic sect. But one thing is certain, whoever they were, they hid their entire library in the caves for a reason. And that reason is war. In the year 70 AD, the Roman Empire crushed the Jewish revolt in Jerusalem. Legends under Titus burned the second temple to the ground, looted its treasures, and slaughtered tens of thousands of people. The violence spread across the countryside. When the Roman army reached Qumran, the community knew they were doomed. They packed their most sacred scrolls into clay jars, carried them into the cliffs, and sealed them in caves. They planned to come back for them after the war. They never did. The community was wiped out. The scrolls sat in the dark for 1,900 years. But the scrolls hold one final dark secret. They believed this war was part of something much bigger. A text called the War Scroll describes an apocalyptic 40-year final battle between two sides, the sons of light and the sons of darkness. The sons of darkness are led by Belial, the angel of evil, a demonic figure of chaos and destruction. The sons of light are led by the archangel Michael. For 40 years, the two sides fight to a stalemate. Then, in the final battle, God himself intervenes. He destroys Belial and all his armies forever and establishes an eternal kingdom of peace. The people of Qumran truly believed they were living in the final days, that this cosmic war was happening all around them. They hid their scrolls so that someone, someday, would know the truth. Great discoveries don't just give us answers, they give us more questions. The Dead Sea Scrolls didn't solve the mysteries of the Bible. It showed us just how messy, how human, how complicated the history of religion really is. They proved that the stories we accept as official truths are often just the ones that won out in a political fight thousands of years ago. And they remind us there are still secrets buried in the desert sand. There are still caves no one has found. There are still lost chapters of human history waiting to be unearthed. What do you think? Is there more treasure out there? And what other lost texts do you hope we find next? Drop a comment below. If you loved this deep dive into ancient mysteries, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Until next time, keep questioning the past. This is Hidden Latin Chronicle. See you next time.